theyeshiva.net.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Yesterday, we learned a little bit of a complicated piece. The difference between Tohu and Tikkun. It says in Chaim, I'm just going to quote the words, that Tohu, there were no partsufim, but only nekudas. As he says, the spheres were not developed into details and nuances and length and breadth. It was a nekuda. And as a result of that, there was another point that in Tohu, the spheres hazeh tachazeh, not integrated. And he says one depends on the other. And in Tikkun, that process was reversed, where we say the spheres are called partsufim. They're built into complete organisms and structures, which requires pratim, details, and pratim, details within details. This is 9 becomes 9 times 9. Each one has 3, a beginning, a middle, and an end. Together it creates the structure which we call 248, Ramach, which the physical structure is a structure that begins first within the spiritual energy of the body, and this it's resulted also in the physical and physiological dimension. Yeah. Today it's already agreed by most mature physicians how profound the symbiosis, the word?
Agreed on something that it's necessarily true.
But how profound the symbiosis between the soul and the body, between the mind and the body, if you want to say that, or between the consciousness and the body. I know the word soul, it's not a simple word, but between consciousness and the body, between the inner and the outer. So, and you really see it here, that the Ramach, we talk about Ramach, so it's not just limbs, physical limbs, it's a structure of physical limbs. It's a spiritual division, it's a spiritual structure that's only mirrored in the physical. So when you look at a body, I see a body from the outside. If you take an X-ray, you could see the same exact body, but you see something on the inside. That before they made X-rays, you had to guess, you had to speculate from symptoms. What if you can take a soul X-ray? What would that look like? If you could take a soul X-ray, it's exactly the same body, but you just what you're seeing is a different layer of it.
Where did 248 come from?
There's the famous expression that the body is made up of Ramach Evarim, 248. They usually translate it as limbs or organs.
Yesterday you did 9 times 9, got to 2, someone got to
243, and the 5 chasadim, because each one has 3, so 9 times 9 is 81. And each one is divided into 3, called Rosh, Taich, Saif, beginning, middle, and an end. So 3 times 81, 243, Rabbi Klippa says, without a calculator. And another 5 is 248.
Yeah. Is this in our capacity to have these type of eyes?
No, of course it's our capacity. I mean, to different degrees, of course.
It should be in our expectation that we can these types of things.
Yeah. Probably the best definition, one of the best definitions for the Sefer of Tanya is an X-ray of the soul. It's probably one of the better definitions. You go to a physician, you go to a doctor, you want an X-ray of the body. Yeah. You go to a grand therapist, and maybe you want an X-ray of the mind. Depends on his capacity to make an X-ray. Right? If I could take an X-ray, what does it look like inside? Now, it's harder than X-ray of the body in many ways. So, this needs a lot of beer, what this difference is. I want to learn a little more inside before we begin to explain. Vahamashal.
That X-ray shows the Gedarim. That's what it does. As Rabbi said the other night, Ruchnis doesn't have any Gedarim, so the Neshama doesn't have any Gedarim, so it's a bit difficult to see it.
Okay. Ultimate Ruchnis has no Gedara. Ultimate. At least certain manifestations of it. At least certain manifestations. Yeah, sure. V'hamashal l'shnei b'chinas elu. It's page 103, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 8 lines from the top, page 103. 103. V'hamashal l'shnei b'chinas elu, yuven gamkin b'koiches hanefesh b'guf. The mashal for this will also be understood through the faculties of the soul and their relationship to the body. Because he already brought a mashal from the body to discuss partsufim, structures. And the mashal for this itself will bring, that's the gamkein, that says also. There are 248 faculties of the soul that are actually manifested, expressed through 248 parallel aspects of the body. The example is koyach ha're'iyah mislabeshes ba'ayin. The soul has a capacity for vision. What does vision look like pre-birth or after death? It's not what vision looks like after birth. Vision after birth is a vision that's manifested and plays itself out through the chemistry of the retina, through the chemistry of the eye. In all of its, the eye is probably one of the, they speak about the 7 wonders of the universe. I think first and foremost is your eyes. Your eyes. Yeah. If you read about the jets, the most developed jets that have, cameras from all sides and the peripheral vision of the horse and the ability to be able to monitor, right? And it pales in comparison to thousands and thousands of sensors that the eye has. So that chemistry, the eye becomes a keli, it becomes the vessel for the power of vision that is manifested through the physical eye. But what about spirit? There's also something called spiritual vision. Spiritual vision is a different type of vision. Spiritual vision is deeper. It's not limited. The eye is incredible, but it's still what my eye can perceive, what my eye can't perceive. Right? There's an oir, there's a light you could see from one end of the world to the other end of the world. It's a different type of vision. My eye can't have that. Our eyes don't have that. So there's koyach ha're'iyah shemislabeshes ba'ayin, koyach hashmiya ba'ozen. There's the power of audio, shma, listening. That's manifested dafka in the ear. And each one is made up. Again, the extraordinary miracle of biology that each limb is made up. Its chemistry is made up that it could become a facilitator, a conduit for this type of experience. The nose doesn't have those receptors that creates the stimulation that the eye perceives and then the brain translates as the vision that I'm looking at, or the voice that I'm hearing, or the smell that I'm smelling. So these are koiches, faculties that essentially are soul faculties, but they're manifested in these and through these physical limbs. Koyach ha'maisa biyadayim. The ability to act in the hands. I can act with my nose. My nose picks up reality, but how does it pick up reality? It picks up reality through smell. My eyes, I don't act with my eyes. I look with my eyes. And then there's what the hands. The hands have a special, the koyach ha'maisa, action. I want to give, I want to do, You can act with your eyes. Yeah, I know, but different type of maisa, of course. You're saying more with your hands sometimes. V'koyach ha'hiluch b'raglayim. There's the koyach of hiluch. We call that movement. I can't move. I can't physically move and transport myself with my nose or with my eyes. I could see the vision. I could see the destination. But here, one needs legs. One needs raglayim. And again, this is called a koyach. It's not just a technical thing. It's a faculty of the soul. Yes, movement, action, smelling, seeing, hearing in the soul pre-birth is experienced differently. What does it mean that a soul moves? But movement is a capacity. It's a capacity. It's manifested in the body through different parts of the body. This is the legs, this is the hands, this is the eyes, this is this. Chuli, etc., etc. He doesn't enumerate 248, but that's how it goes. Basically, this is the hispashtus, which is the expansiveness, or the expression, and the manifestation of the faculties of the soul in kalim. Kalim means containers, vessels. In this case, what are the kalim? The evarim. And you need to have the right keli. And when you study the body, you see the extraordinary meticulousness and precision of each keli designed in the most impeccable, extraordinary way to be able to achieve this result. Because the oil of the nefesh is there. But if the keli is not there, right? If the keli is not there, which we call sometimes illness or paralysis, etc. The keli is not there, so this koyach can't be manifested in a physical way. Helen Keller once said, who was completely blind and deaf, and she said, the only thing that's worse than being blind is not having vision. Having sight but no vision. Vision, right? There's an old anecdote. Some of you may have heard it from me. It's an old Israeli anecdote that Moshe Dayan, who was Israel's defense minister, and he had a patch on his eye. You remember Moshe Dayan, he had a patch on his eye from a wound that he received yet in the 1940s, and he was once driving on an Israeli highway. And he was driving at 150 kilometers per hour, which in Israel is not that fast, as you know, but illegal. And a policeman comes to Chonetz Israel, and a policeman stops him and sees it's Moshe Dayan, and he says, you, a general, you ought to serve as a role model for Israeli society. I think we have to quadruple your summons, because mimenu yiru v'chein yasu, you're supposed to be an example. You're driving like a madman, you could kill people. So he says, Adoni HaShoter, my dear officer, look at me, I only have one eye. Now what would you like me to do with this eye? Look at the speedometer or look at the highway? So, I don't know if he got a ticket or not, but the vart is a good vart. Yeah. Some people, their whole life, they're looking at the speedometer. Fast, I'm slow, I'm going fast, too cautious. You have to see your destination, you have to see your highway. So in sight itself, there's levels, and there's vision. So this is the koyach hariyah vision. A soul has vision. A soul has much more vision. Because the Gashmis doesn't block it. The koyach hariyah gets blocked by Gashmis. A soul could see the whole planet simultaneously. We can't. We can't. The moment a person passes away, their vision doesn't go away. They could see the entire planet simultaneously. Because their re'iyah is not limited and blocked by, the building is blocking me. I can't see what's past the building. Or the eye can only pick up the light, the spectrums of light that my eye can pick up are limited. The frequency is limited. The distance must have a limit, etc. So these are the kalim, the evarim are the kalim. V'oid nimtza b'china achas ha'kelelis is kol protei ha'koiches ha'mischalkim be'evarim anal u'makefes aleim mikol tzad mi'rosh v'ad ragla. But you're not going to say that there is a complete compartmentalization in the body. There is also a oneness. There's a b'china achas, a oneness, one dimension which encompasses all of the faculties that are compartmentalized in all of the organs and encompasses all of them from every side, from the head till the toe. And this is the thought of the person. There is a deep interconnectedness between the brain and the koyach hamachshava in every single dimension. You see, a person gets burnt, britzachap, he scorched in the nail of his foot. Immediately, his thought, his awareness, his consciousness experiences the pain. A person has a desire to move his foot. Tisnaneya, take it from miyad sheyala b'machshavti l'naneya ragloi. It's not a whole, long, complicated, unless the person, God forbid, there's a defect. But usually it's not a complicated physiological process, but rather people are not even aware of it. Every time you pick up your hand, every time you move your foot, there was a command. There was a commandment to do it. I'm not always aware of it, but there is such a symbiosis, such a unity. It happens. Because there's an element of consciousness or an element of we call today the nervous system that exists everywhere. And that's all connected to the central nervous system, which is the brain. Over there, nobody's going to say they think with their feet or they think with their hands. Consciousness is in the brain. But there's an element of ratzon or machshava that encompasses the entire body as one. V'hinei inyan is slapshus hakoiches be'evadim hu mashal b'chinas partsufim the yosher shemislapshim bekelim kedugmas partsuf meichel uzreis. The manifestation of the faculties in limbs, each limb separate, is a metaphor to the structures we spoke about earlier, which are known in Kabbalah as partsufim of yosher. We'll soon see what that means, which is manifested in kalim, like the structure of the brain and the structure of the arms, the torso, etc. Tohu is more associated in Kabbalah with a world, with a reality called igulim versus yosher, which is more like makifim, circles. Igulim means circles, yosher means straight, yosher like yosher, and this is like the mashal of the machshav. Was mazbazat?
Machshav is in the regal.
Yeah. It's an interesting statement, yeah.
The whole area of research now, the machshava is in the DNA. We're finding proof of that.
That there is consciousness in DNA. Yeah.
Separate from our consciousness. Separate from our consciousness. Not separate. It's part of our consciousness.
Our consciousness is a glimmer of that. It's just a little fraction of that consciousness. And that's why machshavas get passed on, epigenetics, right? People thought that experiences you have can get passed on to children. Genetics can get passed on to children. What happens with trauma, Holocaust trauma, or so many other types? How's it getting passed on? What's getting passed on? It's not a gene. I understand the color of hair. I understand the color of eyes. I understand different makeups of a body. I understand chalila, a genetic disorder, or whatever it is, a genetic virtue. I mean, a genetic strength. But sudden,
Don't get stuck in the physical.
Okay, no, that's where the research. That's where the research began. I think, right? The body holds the score and all that. That the genes carry consciousness. The genes are not just. They're not just a simple technical physical program. Yeah. And where is their DNA? Where's the not DNA? DNA is DNA you can extract from a strand of hair, even when there's no nerves, even when you don't see a chios. You cut your hair, there's no pain. You have nails, you have saliva. I mean, it seems like chitzonius should be chitzonius. But he calls it makif, because you can't compare the experience of consciousness in the brain to the experience of consciousness in the leg. But it doesn't mean it's not there. In a way, it's more powerful even, because it's not limited to the aver. We were learning this once as yeshiva bachram, so there was a chevraman there who was a scientist or a pseudoscientist. So he was alarmed. He was alarmed. It was Rabbi Khan was teaching. What, this is a joke? What, machshava and regel? Whoever heard of this? It does take time from the brain till the foot. It's not true. This is old Greek science that has no basis in reality. And this, so stop. I remember that he was very alarmed that he says the machshava is also beregel. What's machshava beregel? What's machshava? Regel is a regel. Regel, you kick a basketball. You kick a soccer ball. Or in Europe, a football. But that's what a regel is for. You want to run, you run. Machshava regel. Huh? Huh? He said they should. Yeah.
An example of this consciousness.
So then people should be able to play soccer without brains at all.
Exactly. They play football now.
They do.
I actually thought otherwise.
Depends on the player.
I mean, real Premier League player.
If you're a fan, then he probably plays with his brain. If not, he doesn't.
My guys play with the brain. When they stimulate it, they can actually get up.
They stimulate the spine to help paralyzed people walk because of the memory. Yeah.
So limitation is with the scientists and everyone, but they're trying to figure out what it is, but they never can because, like the DNA, for example, it's a amino acids, chain of amino acids, but each amino acid goes deeper and deeper.
Yeah.
As deeper as the universe goes that way, the body goes deep.
Yeah.
Inside also. So the scientists can never. In my practice, I tell people about the nervous system, and I say, well, really, the nervous system is a series of sodium and potassium ions that go very, very fast. I said that's just something that Hashem made just to keep the scientists busy trying to figure out. It's really life energy. It's really life energy traveling through the nervous system.
It's like you throw your baby a Lego game, so you could be busy for 3 hours, right?
Can't figure it out. I go play.
Right. I just have my notes here. That's why I'm opening this. I'm not checking messages. I wrote notes here last night, so that's what I didn't print. I didn't have a chance to print it, so that's why I'm looking at it. I don't want you to be choshed that I'm checking somebody's messages in the middle of talking. I'm not so talented. Okay, so let's try to explain at least a little bit some of the messages that are being communicated here. When you say the words Tohu and Tikkun, we have to remember, we discussed this a few times, but this is important to understand because it's so basic. And that is that in Kisvei Harizal, where the ideas of Tohu and Tikkun are developed from a Kabbalistic point of view, using Kabbalistic language. Yeah. That Baal HaTanya, like most of his colleagues, chose to use the language of Kabbalah to explain Chassidus. And probably, lahavdil, but I think a good metaphor for that is, physics uses the language of mathematics to explain physics. Physics is not mathematics. It gets confusing because they employ the language of mathematics because it's a very useful language. It's a good keli for physics, but physics is not mathematics. Physics has ideas that mathematics, sometimes they have to grapple to find the oisius. But mathematics serves as a pretty good keli, as a pretty good structure for the ideas of physics. But you could convey physics without mathematics. You just have to know how to do it. You have to understand it a little better. So Kabbalah is the language that he uses. He always uses that language. Igulim, Yosher, Partsufim, Tohu, Tikkun, Svidus. It's a language. It's a very useful language because it fits. But essentially, the Baal HaTanya uses that language. But as you could see in all his Meshalim, he's trying to explain an idea and a concept which relates to practical life as much as it relates to Kabbalistic mathematics. In other words, it's not equations. The equations that are used are the language, but the Nekuda is a perspective that relates to every aspect of life. I just want to mention that, and this is true about every single Maimer. What would Maimarim look like if he didn't choose the language of Kabbalah? That's an interesting hypothesis, but he did, so that's the language. It does make it very difficult for people to read and learn and understand because the language, you have to know the language.
That's what he's speaking about. So he has to use that language.
Yeah. I'm mentioning this is an important, if you understood what I said, it's a very important idea.
Usually people think differently. what you just said is completely different from what most of the people explain the Hasidus, because they thought Hasidus is the way to explain Kabbalah.
Right.
What you're saying is the opposite.
Yeah.
Kabbalah is the language to
Yeah, the Rebbe Rashab, the fifth Moshe Rebbe once said, the Welt sagt, dass Chassidus is a beard of Kabbalah. The emes is Kabbalah is a beard of Chassidus. The word says Chassidus is an explanation for Kabbalah. Really, Kabbalah is explanation of Chassidus. It's like almost the spiritual mathematics to explain Chassidus. He doesn't mean this chronologically, historically, but he means conceptually. Okay, now, I'm saying this because this is a very classic example of this. This Maimei, Gulim, and Yosha, and Partzufim, and Tohu, and Tikkun. You're reading Kabbalistic text, but you're not really reading Kabbalistic text. You're reading text of Chassidus. What's the Nekuda? So this is very bekitzer here. Alter Rebbe had a grandson, the Tzemach Tzedek, who has a Maimer in Derech Mitzvah, who explains this more at length, and he has a son. The Mittler Rebbe also explains this more at length. So I'm using some of their explanations in order to understand this a little better, at least some points of it, to my limited knowledge. And that is that when you speak about Tohu and Tikkun, the way the Arizal presents it is V'ha'aretz ha'isas sohu v'vayu, that Tohu was the first Shemitah. And when we say the first, as he said, he doesn't mean in time and he doesn't mean the physical universe, but he means that preceding the world of Tikkun, preceding in terms of conceptual sequence, there's a reality called Tohu. And when you say preceding not in time means something that precedes it in terms of sequence. You get to the second via the first. Yeah, but I'll give an example. 1 plus 1 equals 2. 2 minus 1 equals 1. Can you get to number 2 without number 1? No. Because first you have to define 2 as 1 plus 1. Once I know that 1 and another 1 equals 2, so then if I take 2 and I subtract 1 from it, what am I left with? I'm left with 1. Now, statement number 2 never existed without statement number 1, and statement number 1 never existed without statement number 2. There was never a time that 1 plus 1 equaled 2, but 2 minus 1 did not equal 1. It just happened 100 years later, right? But you're going to call it, but one is called kaidem, one precedes the other. Not it precedes the other in time, but it precedes the other in concept. Yes. This is the prerequisite. It's sometimes you'll speak about sibo mesoivev, the cause and the effect, or ila va'alo, or min hakdima el ha'ichor. So in Kabbalistic terminology, this is called time. This is really what's called time. Spiritual, the different type of time. Because what it means is that number 2 is a result or is a consequence of the concept of number 1, even though there was never a time, physical time, that 1 existed without 2. Just one marshal to keep in your mind. So you say Tohu precedes Tikkun means there's a process of Tohu that's followed by Tikkun. What is this process? So the way that Arizal always describes it, and he's going to say it here later in the Maimer, we learned it in a few Maimarim of the Balatanya, that in Tohu, the Oiris were merubim and the Kalim were muwatim. The Oiris were many and the vessels were few. And in Tikkun, the lights are small, are few, and the vessels are many. Oiris muwatim, Kalim merub. Diminished light in broad vessels. And in Tohu, it's broad light or expansive light or intense light in narrow vessels and small vessels. As a result, there's a process known as shviris hakelim. The vessels break from the burden, from the weight. I'm using again physical language. From the intensity of the light, the vessels can't contain it, and the vessels break. And in the wake of the destruction of Tohu, a new world is built. Like he said in the beginning of the Maimer, that the 7 kings of Tohu died. Vayimlach vayamas, vayimlach vayamas. They died. And then there is the second Shemitah, which is Olam HaTikkun, Shanas Achakach, that happens after that. Then he spoke about the transplants of certain souls from Tohu that came to Tikkun. So, which is a higher world, Tohu or Tikkun? Tohu means chaos. Tikkun means correction. Tikkun, Lasakin Olam, right? Healing, correction, wholesomeness. Tikkun is a good word. Tohu is not, you say a neshama from Tohu, it's usually not a compliment. We learned in other Maimonim in Torah Vayishlach and told us that Esav's shirish was Tohu. Yeah. So why doesn't he say that Esav was a transplant from Tohu? He's bringing Moshe, Chanoich. It says the shirish of Esav, we learned, was from Elam HaTohu. The shirish of Yaakov was from Elam HaTikun. Yeah. So you can't understand this with the language of Tohu because it's too chaotic. You have to have Tikkun. Everything you can only understand through Tikkun because Tikkun is structure. Tikkun is structure. Structure allows things to be sustained in a world that needs vessels and structure. But Tohu is the precedent of Tikkun because Tohu is the full truth of everything. And because Tohu is the full truth of everything, its intensity knows no bounds because all truth is extremely intense and unlimited. He says it that in Tohu, you see, maybe I'm jumping ahead of myself. There's something called Oiris and Kalim, lights and vessels. One of the basics of Pnimiyus HaTorah, of Kabbalah, of Chassidus, you really have this already in Medrashes, that Hashem identified within himself 10 koiches, and they're the building blocks of the universe. Hashem identified within himself, within his infinite light, 10 faculties. Yeah? Chachma, Bina, Das, Chesed, Word, Tiferes, Netzach, Chod, Yesod, Malchus. Or sometimes Keser, Chachma, Bina, Chesed, Word, Tiferes, Netzach, Chod, Yesod, Malchus. When you count Das, you don't count Keser. You count Keser, you don't count Das. And those are the building blocks of the universe. Those are the 10 faculties with which God chose to create and sustain and relate to the universe. Each one of them is made up of Oir and Keli. Oir is the light and Keli is the vessel. What's the difference between a light and a vessel? The best example probably is musical notes and the music. The musical notes, you open a piano book, there's musical notes. You know how to read them? Yeah. They carry music. Yeah. When a musician, a real pianist, opens up a musical book, he starts smiling. When I open up a musical book, I close it. Huh? Yeah. I don't hear anything. I just see lines. Yeah. Those lines are not lines, they're kalim. The oir is the music. You have a vision, you want to write a book, like every Jew, right? That's the oir. But getting it down on paper, that's the keli, and everybody knows how hard it is. Have an idea, have an epiphany. Okay, send it to me by email. Okay, 3 years later, I didn't get around to it. But it's an unbelievable idea. Ideas are powerful. They're oiris. Oiris is energy, light. You have an idea, you're going to create a business, you're going to change the world, and you're going to make $6 billion by next year. Oir.
Sometimes R precedes Kaylee, and sometimes Kaylee precedes R.
Some people are more oir-oriented. Some people are more kalim-oriented. One way of describing it is the artist and the businessman. You know, many artists died penniless. You know that, some of the greatest. Today, their paintings sell not less than $20 million, but they couldn't pay for their own tombstone. Musicians, singers, composers, brilliant. Why? Because talent, self-expression, it's unbelievable. But then the businessman comes to you and says, no, I got to package you. Nobody could package my art. Sorry. Packaging, what's packaging? Kalim. You know the first thing of packaging is? You mutilate creativity. That's what real packaging is. Artists will die rather than have somebody mutilate their creativity. You submit your essay to the newspaper, the editor looks at it. I told you 1,000 words, not 4,000 words. It's too brilliant. It needs 4,000 words. We don't have place for 4,000 words. No. This is a historic essay. It's going to win me the Nobel Prize. The editor looks at it, right? What does he do? Chops it up. You take a look and you have a heart attack. And there goes your Nobel Prize. They say Schreibers starben nicht von Herzfällen. Say starben von Druckfällen. I don't know how to translate that.
People don't die from hunger, they die from shame.
Writers don't die from heart failure, they die from print failure. In other words, they die when they see their article in the newspaper. You understand? The editor is thinking about one thing. I have a readership. I have to satisfy them. Most of my readers have ADD. They only read the headline. Then maybe they'll read the first 3 lines. Yeah. They call it today marketing. What is marketing? Marketing is not about your brilliance. Marketing is all about customer service. What the customers want. I don't care about your creativity and self-expression. That's not easy for an artist to hear. It's all about his self-expression. His music, his art, his ideas, whatever type of self-expression. Yeah. Marriage. What's the oid of marriage? What's the keli of marriage? It's pretty simple to understand. The oid of marriage is the energy in the marriage. The passion, the love, the connection, the camaraderie. What's the keli of the marriage? Taking out the garbage. And that's where so much oil dies, because the keli is very limited. That's what a keli is. Niagara Falls has a tremendous current of water, but you can't drink from it. I need to put it in a bottle or cup with 7 ounces. And 7 ounces is 7 ounces. It limits all oiris. Kalim are here to limit and market the oir that it should be able to be receptive. So oiris and kalim are not they're not small terms. They are the DNA of the universe. Everything in this world from the beginning of history is a marriage of oir and keli. There's nothing that exists that's not a marriage of oir and keli. Sometimes it's more oir, less keli. Sometimes it's more keli and more. But there's always the symmetry, the combination of oir and keli. Because if you have oir without keli, it doesn't last. It doesn't have a structure. If you have keli without oir, it's lifeless. It's devoid of anything. And creating structures for oirs is not easy because the two contradict each other. They have opposite agendas, opposite motifs. Okay? So here there's a process of how the sphere is developed. Every sphere has oir and keli. Chesed has oir and keli. What's the oir of chesed? The love, the connection. The keli is how it's facilitated, how it's expressed. You know that some of your parents loved you to pieces. They die. Did they ever express it? Huh? We know your mother, but fine. Okay, you're lucky. There's a keli for it. And it's not just expression in words. Sometimes you could love somebody, your child doesn't even know you like them. It's a tragedy. Why? Somehow it wasn't filtered in a way that the person can experience it. In your soul, you die for them. But there was a detach from keli. Chachma bin ideas. Ideas are oiris, but every idea needs kelim. In Chachma it says there's more oir than keli. In Bina there's more keli than oir. Because Chachma is of an epiphany. Very little kelim. And Bina is structure. Right? So it says in Tohu the oiris were great and the kelim were small. In Tikkun the kelim are great and the oiris are small. And that's why Tikkun can survive, because it has smaller oiris, meaning the kelim are very broad. So when he says that in Tohu every sphere was a nakuda, it was not nuanced, and therefore it was not integrated. Yeah. What does this mean? This means that in Tohu, every experience is extreme. The oir is infinite. There's no room for limitation. And therefore, it shines in its core. Whenever something is expressed at its core, it's not limited. All limitation comes from, you go a little bit away from the core. And therefore, there's no integration either. There's no room for integration. There's something very beautiful about it. There's something very pure about it. An example for this is whenever you become a child. When do you become a child? When a child has an emotion, yeah? And when we become children, which is pretty often, right? Those emotions give no room for any other emotions. You took away a knife from your child, or you said you can't have ice cream tonight, and he's frantic, right? And you start rationalizing and explaining this. I hate you. You're the worst tati who ever existed. For those 10 minutes, that is as authentic as it gets. You say, yeah, but yesterday I took you on such a beautiful trip. There's no yesterday. But look what I did for you. You know how much your tuition bill is this year? I'm picking it up. And you know how much I'm paying for this mortgage every month so that you have a place to live? And you know how much Shabbos costed me so that you can eat tofu and barley kernels and sourdough challah? When you're getting angry at me, are you taking all of this into consideration? Now you tell this to a husband who comes to therapy with his wife and they're angry at each other. 20 years. Why? I'm in a place of tohu now. The emotion, this is it. It's just it. Now, can you live with this? The world of tikkun is very different. The world of tikkun is pratim or pratim. You're not at its core. You dissect it. It's coming from this perspective, that perspective. I could see it from this way, I could see it from that way. You can already see different angles, different dimensions, and therefore it can also coexist with other svidus. There could be hiskalalus, there could be structures. In Tohu, everything is at its extreme, at its core, because of its intensity, and therefore it doesn't allow for the coexistence of something else because it's so pure. There's something so real about it. There's something so authentic about it. And tikkun only happens after Tohu. It's a very different process. The energy must be compromised, diluted, mitigated, contained. And then the chesed could say, there's something called gvura. And that's what an organism is. An organism is never about one point of the body that takes over. An organism is not about an artist. The brain says today I have a lot to express. What's the definition of an organism? We work together. It's a company. Quite literally, it's a company. We work together. For me to work together, I can't take myself too seriously. I have to take myself seriously, but I can't take myself too seriously. Tohu's message is, if I'm true, I'm true. If this emotion is true, it's really, really true. Depends what's called sheker. In the original world of Tohu, it's not sheker. So what he's saying here, sometimes you see a person in that state, right? That's a state of Tohu. That's a state of Tohu. And that's the experience of Tohu. And when you're in the world of Tohu, it's as real as it gets. There's no room for anything else.
You can watch it.
You can watch it. You have to watch it. And tikkun can't change that. You'll tell a person, yeah, but. No buts. There's no buts. You ever see it in therapy? So you do all day. Right? So we try to delegitimize it. No, don't. It's Tohu. This is a stage. In fact, you have to go through Tohu to come to tikkun. You have to be able to understand, experience it. Not everybody, some people are already programmed in different ways. You have to get to tikkun, because Tohu you won't survive. You will never survive with Tohu.
So in a relationship, both people have to have good kalim.
But kalim you build for oir. And when oir develops initially, it's as nekudas. Nekuda is like a nuclear, when you split an atom. It unleashes tremendous momentum. And there's no kalim for it. Sorry, there's no limit, there's no negotiations.
Somebody's in the state of Tohu. How does he go into tikkun?
How do you not get stuck?
Yeah.
Get married.
Ganz good, mashallah. You see, sometimes in 3 seconds, somebody can say what the other guy is trying to say for an hour. He meant it literally. He did it. He was not joking.
That's why we're laughing.
You could check his texts. You'll see. You could check everybody's texts. You have to move on, but you have to respect it, and don't get scared of it. People get scared of it. I'm a lost case. You're not a lost case. You're doing exactly what God did. You're not. Tell you, it's real. Every middah has to be experienced, and that's what children are. Children are a glimpse of that. Okay, they're children. They're not adults. They don't run. They can't run the house. It's true. If they run the house, it looks like Tohu, right? But children, nobody will suggest that the world will be better off without children. Chalila. There were those who suggested that. Because children, we call them adorable. Part of their being adorable, they can get away with it because they're 4 years old, right? They can get away with saying, you're the worst father who ever lived on this planet. You're not coming to my birthday ever again. You're not getting anything of my birthday cake. And then the father says, I paid for the birthday cake. You and Einstein. And he says, I don't care if you paid for the birthday cake. It's my birthday cake. It's cute. It's adorable. What's so cute about it? This pure energy. Pure energy, yeah. But purists, you know what happens to purists?
They get married.
Huh? If they do. We can discuss this for another 3 hours, but we need some kalim. So, mitzat Tohu, the shir should go on. Mitzat Tikkun, the shir should end. Tomorrow there's going to be a shir. Okay? Same time. You see, mitzat Tohu, darf man nicht endigen. Aber Tikkun, das ist das. That's the beauty of Tohu. Right? When you're young, you could sit in one thing forever. Extremism. In a good way, extremism. Yeah?
The Rabbi and the whole system is constantly trying to develop techniques.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't happen,
But you want to develop the kalim with oil.
happen that way.
You and me have the
other
same
ways.
experience.
If what?
The can start getting developed other
Some
ways.
people
Yeah.
But if they have to
get rid of all the, they lose the type.
Yeah.
Have both. You need tension. The tension between the two.
Okay, let's move on. Sorry for the kalim. A lot of revolutionaries had oil, but no kalim.
Did you write this all down for yourself? What you were just telling us?
Last night, before I fell asleep.
It's a murder Masber.
No, where is it?
I never had such a clarity about it.
This is, it's not, tell you, whatever, just some notes to structure the class.
How did you get it out? How did you understand this?
I don't know.
Analysis, thinking?
I read a lot about it in the Maimarim. I looked up all the Maimarim. I was basically just a Machtzedek, right?
Eventually it became clear. So I read this, but it made no sense.
Okay.
Before you explain it, it made zero sense.
What point made it so clear for you?
The explanation of the problem was pure emotion.
Pure. And therefore infinite, unconstrained, no other calculations, no compromises. Don't look at it from another perspective, no other perspective.
And actually, I understood now the ace of that came from.
Yeah, one-dimensional. And there's something very special about it. You have to be able...
That's why it's got love, because he saw the purity.
Purity, yeah. And the problem with it is not with it. The problem is that we don't have kalim for it. Including the person himself. The person himself. So it drives him crazy.
In a way, it's a destruction.
And he destroys himself. He believes that he's a destroyed person because look at me. Look at what Meshuggah. The whole world is saying, calm down, and I'm the only crazy person. So you destroy yourself. That people don't realize. Shviras HaKelim is what you do to yourself. You break yourself. You break yourself. I'm sorry for our 12-minute delay. Huh? We were having too much of a good time. It's a problem, right?
Time doesn't exist.
Huh? When shiurim are boring and monotonous, they never have a problem ending on time. You know that, right? When they're interesting, it's a little... it's like the kids don't want to leave the amusement park. We want to stay here another couple hours.
This class is brought to you by theyeshiva.net. Please help us continue the classes. Make even a small contribution at www.theyeshiva.net/donate.